Welcome to episode 2 of Voices in the Valley. I have Brad Glynn here. I mean, really big deal in the town of Stillwater, and we're going to learn a ton about him. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up? Let's start right from the bottom.
Wow, just starting out right there.
Let's go right there.
Well, being a beer guy, obviously I probably, came from the town of beer. So Milwaukee.
Is Milwaukee the town of beer?
Pretty much, I think so.
Okay.
So all the, German immigrants settled there, started breweries.
Wait,
of course, a lot of the biggest ones.
Were your family German immigrants?
I'm not. I'm Irish. So
Irish.
Yeah,
well, that makes
Irish
sense.
heritage.
Okay.
Yeah. And we obviously like beer too. And
Sure.
whiskey and other things. So, but definitely Milwaukee, big beer town. And actually, my dad worked for one of the largest breweries at the time, Schlitz.
Schlitz.
Yeah, a lot of people
I've heard
don't know.
I've heard stories about
in the
Schlitz.
50s, well, in the 50s, Schlitz was bigger than Budweiser.
Wow.
But people don't know. And then
Okay.
Budweiser went like this, and Schlitz kind of went like that. But honestly, I grew up around beer, and in Milwaukee, basically everyone, knew someone with a brewery or knew someone with a bar.
Wow.
A lot of my relatives own supper clubs, so grew up drinking beer, making Manhattans and old fashions for the great uncles, and eating fish fries on Friday nights.
You were literally born into it. So, how old was your dad when he started? And was he brewing, or what did he do?
Well, he was more on the administration side, and
Okay.
he right out of college, he got a finance degree and went to work for Schlitz. And I guess at the time they had a labor strike at that time, and so he actually had to do some work on the floor. And he was getting picketed and stuff thrown at him, and getting called a scab when he was 22 years old.
Oh
so
my gosh.
kind of funny, but as his career evolved, Stroh's bought Schlitz. He worked for them for a while. I moved to Detroit for a while when I was a kid, and then moved to St. Paul, because then he ran the brewery on the east side of St. Paul, which was that former Hams brewery.
Yeah.
And now it's several different things, but
Was it
ran
Hams when he?
No, it was Stroh's. So
It was
Stroh's
Stroh's,
had bought
okay.
that facility, turned it into a Stroh's facility, and then in '96-ish it shut down. So at that time I had graduated from high school, and I was going to college, and I just said, bye folks, and they went down to La Crosse. Well, actually at that time I think he went back to Detroit, and I didn't really want to move back to Detroit.
You weren't feeling that move?
No, so stayed in Minnesota and made this my home. And after college I moved over to Stillwater and kind of made it my home, but definitely Milwaukee. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in a suburb, much like the size of Stillwater. It was called Greendale. It's still called Greendale. Very cute town, awesome little main street, super Norman Rockwell-ish.
Was it as cute? The answer is no.
It's pretty darn cute.
Is it?
Yeah, so they had the big business in town was Ryman Publishing, and they do a bunch of different country home magazines, that kind of stuff. I can't remember some of their bigger ones, but anyway, so they invested heavily in the little downtown Main Street area, so it's super gorgeous. There's parades every 4th of July and all that stuff. So I mean, it's a really cool town.
Comparable to where you're at now.
Yeah, and about the same size. I think Stillwater, we have the river and a little bit more history. In Greendale, there's a lot of these concrete homes. So it was like a Eleanor Roosevelt planned community. There's 6 of them around the country. There's spread out. Greendale was one of them.
Concrete homes. Tell me, I don't know what that is.
there was a big steel shortage and wood shortage, and they wanted to do make-works projects for people after the war.
Yeah.
So they basically gave people kits to build their own little homes, and they're little bungalows, but they're built out of cement.
Wow.
Essentially.
Okay.
And over the years, when I was a kid, a lot of people were putting siding up and shingled roofs and stuff like that, but now there's been kind of a resurgence in stripping all that down, making it the original stucco concrete exteriors and wood shakes, and so I still have a lot of relatives that live there and friends, and I still go back for their community festivals and run into people I haven't seen since grade school, and that's always really weird. But,
love that. Do you have siblings that live there?
Yeah, well, I have an older brother who is a Milwaukee County police officer, so he lives not in Greendale, but near. And then we have a family cottage there in Muskego, which is just a southwest suburb as well. And that was kind of I guess a lot of the extended family would go on weekends and party at the lake kind of thing. So it's very Irish cottage vibe to it, and that was really cool growing up. I had a lot of cousins, second cousins, everything. So fun
one
family.
of you goes into law, and you go into brewing. Is he passionate as well about beer and kind of what your dad
He doesn't
did?
drink much beer anymore. No, it's kind of funny. But he went into the military, and then getting out of the military. At that time there wasn't a ton of jobs. It was after like the first Gulf War and all that. So he ended up doing some corrections work, and then settled into a job with a smaller police department. Then went to Milwaukee County.
Okay.
Then I have another brother that lives in Egan. That's
Oh.
in purchasing for a large like aeronautics company. So like I'm the oddball in that
But
that
you
ended
kind
up
of-
getting into brewing.
Yeah, you
But I'm
followed
the
your
youngest
dad.
too, so I'm the baby. So like
What is it
you
with
know,
the babies?
yeah, right.
We have some
Yeah,
special sauce, I
yeah.
think. So, but you kind of took your dad's footsteps, and did he have like a unique flavor profile? Did he turn you on to all of this that you've really developed with both food and spices, and you're kind of an aficionado? I don't know if that's the right word. Is there a weird word for beer when you're super smart about it?
Well, there's like a lot of negative terms like beer geek and
Oh.
and that, but like I suppose I'm a beer geek. Like
Oh, beer
I
geek,
follow
okay.
different stuff. I like trying like anywhere I go, I'm always going to the breweries, that kind of thing. And yeah, that was kind of growing up at the time. And I went to high school in the 90s, right? And I was drinking beer. I'm okay to admit that. But at that time, Summit just started.
Okay.
Pete's Wicked Ale, remember, was really big.
Yeah.
Sam Adams was starting to gain traction. And actually, Stroh's Brewery on the east side produced a lot of the Samuel Adams. They also
Okay.
produced Pete's Wicked Ale, if
I
anyone
didn't know
remembers
that.
Pete's Wicked. But that was kind of a cool beer. So those things were just coming out and just
Early
starting
90s?
to... That was mid-90s, yeah.
Mid-90s, and you were in high school.
Yeah, so I graduated high school in like 95, but my fridge at home had all these amber and roasted beers and cherry wheat from Sam Adams. And so you're starting to taste all these different flavors that are way different than Stroh's or Schlitz, which great to pick up a 36 pack of Stroh's for $10 and get blasted. But these were like beers that all of a sudden had flavor and all these different things. So I picked up a home brewing book and
At what age? At what age are you recognizing this?
17-ish.
Wow.
So I bought a few homebrewing books. My brother had turned, my older brother who lived with us also had turned 21 and moved into his own place. So we ended up setting up a little homebrew setup in his
17
basement.
years old.
So we were brewing there
Wow.
and being responsible and all that. But, just adventuring with things like Northern Brewer had just opened. That was a big homebrew store. Midwest Supply just opened in Minneapolis. So these are like two big homebrew stores that out of the blue, came into existence kind of concurrent with Summit gaining traction. And, this is before, we're in kind of that second wave of breweries, right?
Yeah.
But there's this big first wave in the early 90s.
Early 90s, okay.
So those breweries were gaining traction again with super unique flavors that then we could try to replicate ourselves, which to me was really cool. Like, how do we make this amber ale different? Like, we were smoking apples on a Weber grill to like put in the beer and see how that tasted. So
This is mind-blowing because you're 17. Like, a lot of people, I don't think, explore flavors like that at that age. But also, did you feel like you had a pretty clear vision for what you wanted to do?
no, I didn't know.
Hard
I
no.
didn't
You
know
just
what I
loved-
wanted
this was
to do,
just
like,
fun.
Just fun.
Just
and,
fun, okay.
Like growing up, I had a few years where I somewhat raised myself, but I fell in love with cooking shows. Like I would watch like Emerald back in the day, and like Martin Yan and some other like weird, like just weird stuff. The Julia Child stuff was okay, but I liked it a little bit more entertaining.
And I like the Julia Child.
It was great. Like that's super technique driven,
Yeah.
but when like Emerald was bamming stuff and Yan Can Cook was chopping stuff that you're like, oh my god, like
That
how's
was
this
your
guy
jam.
chopping? So cool. So, in high school even I loved cooking dinners for people. We'd tailgate at parties. I'd do big like beer brats was like kind of my specialty when I was in high school. But I always loved it. I always loved cooking. So it was just an extension of that, was like making this cool thing like beer. I couldn't believe like you can just make beer and you can make it taste like all these different things and throw different ingredients in. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this kind of plain tasting lager.
Right. I
So-
mean, it's every teenager's dream to be able to make their own beer. But you said for a while you raised yourself. Tell me more. Like,
Oh, well, again, we kind of moved around quite a bit. You know, my dad in the brewing industry, and they actually ran a restaurant for a year, and I still, to this day, like, I'm proud that you're out there. I'm, like, excited for restaurant owners, but I could never myself own a restaurant. I think I would be I don't want to fail, and it's such a volatile industry.
Yeah.
Well, they ran a restaurant for a while. Like
what kind? Tell me,
It
like
was
the
a Mexican
name.
place called
Mexican.
Diamond Jim's in the Racine Mall in Racine, Wisconsin.
All right.
So yeah, like they ran that for a couple of years, and they had a business partner that was drunk all the time. Like, and I remember this stuff,
Ooh.
like being a kid.
Yeah.
Like, this, and then so that failed, of course, and then he moved back somewhere else to work, and parents split up for a little bit,
Okay.
and so then I was kind of stuck with my mom, who wasn't really around a lot. So I was kind of cooking for myself and figuring all that out. But so that's when, like I said, I'd come home from school and I'd be like, what am I going to eat for dinner? And then like I'd watch some cooking shows and be like, I can make that. And I'd go
Where the
walk to
rest of us
store.
were like, I'm gonna pour some Cheerios, and like it was cereal. But you had
Yeah.
a whole different mindset.
I don't know why. Like I said, I just fell in love with kind of those shows and the idea of putting things together
Yeah.
and being able to cook a steak for myself. So I was also the kid in my dorm room in college where I'd like walk to Coburn's. I went to St. Cloud.
Okay.
Like I'm like, oh, they have like New York strips on sale like this week, guys. Like I grabbed a couple, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? And I'd like be caramelizing steak, onions.
Oh
and
Lord!
then
And they're eating
seared
ramen.
steaks.
Like
And then-
they're eating ramen, and
Yeah.
you're making all this magic.
But
wow.
again, it's just like I don't know. I've always been that way. I don't want to. And I'll eat ramen. I'll pound down some quarter pounders from McDonald's or
Yeah.
whatever, like every now and again too, like anyone. But I don't like living that way. Like I want to like keep trying different
Yeah.
cool stuff and just really it's all about ingredients and those experiences. Like how do we mix them together in daily
Yeah.
life? So.
Did you think you might be a chef? Like you didn't think you were going to maybe go into brewing. You didn't know really early on. But when did that shift for you? When did you go to school to study something specific?
No, it was like my dad's super, intelligent, like in a good way, mentors a bit, and so you think about things like, well, do I want to like run a restaurant, or
Yeah.
do I want to be a chef?
Yeah.
A lot of those things were like, well, I know one of my buddies who's a cook, and I don't know if I really want to do that. He works like 14 hours a day, and
Yeah.
like you smell like tacos for
Yeah.
2 weeks after your shift ends, and like that wasn't a super like sexy lifestyle. I mean,
Yeah.
so I wanted to do something more corporate, I guess. So I went to school for project management. I really like construction too, so I think that's with the building thing.
Yeah.
As well. So when I was going to college in the summer to kind of supplement income, I worked for a roofing company, and I was,
Okay.
I was pretty good at it. I'm like, oh, I love roofing. I like carpentry.
Yeah.
I like construction in general, but I knew I didn't want to be swinging a hammer either and carrying shingles as a short Irish guy up a ladder for 2 years really takes its toll on your back as well. So I knew at a young age I wasn't meant for that either.
Yeah.
So I went to school for project management and worked for a commercial construction company as a career for about 15 years.
Okay.
And that was great. Still to this day, I probably made more money like per year doing that than I do right now even, which was great. But again, it was one of those things where I started describing my job as, I don't know, I go to work and either I'm yelling at someone or someone's yelling at me, like all day long, all night long.
That's rough.
So it just takes its toll too.
Yeah.
So like there's a whole happiness factor that you gotta, then it was probably going back to the things like, what do I really like to do? And I love creating things. I love home brewing, so I started doing that again.
And what age, like where are we at in your life when you're trying to get back to maybe what you love or your passion?
That was like mid to late 20s.
Okay.
So, and I had just moved to Stillwater, had a couple little kids, and thought Stillwater would be the best place to raise a family.
And how did you even know about Stillwater? Like, how was that on your radar?
Well, I lived in Eagan for a while. I lived in Roseville, kind of eastern suburbs.
Okay.
I always liked St. Paul. That's kind of where my jobs were.
Okay.
Being a project manager, I traveled around the metro quite a bit and worked at schools on the west side of the city and worked on 3M facilities in western Wisconsin, and
Okay.
so I was kind of traveling around quite a bit and getting a feel for what each community is like.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want western suburbs. I mean, I know a lot of people that live out there and love it, but
Yeah.
it just wasn't my vibe. It just doesn't feel right.
East Side's kind of in the heart.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels super character.
Yeah.
I'd come to Stillwater just to hang out, and
Yeah.
just kind of fell in love with the town, loved the river.
Do you remember the very first time you came?
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, I do. We drove through going to the Apple River when I was in high school.
Oh, the Apple River. God
And
bless
stopped
it.
in Stillwater, snuck into Pappy's, and the Freight House had full on dance club.
As it is,
And
yeah.
snuck in there and pounded a bunch of beers after being on the Apple River all day.
Seems
drinking.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dehydrated and all this
I
such,
think
yeah.
that's probably a common story though. Like
Yeah.
that brings us all together.
Yeah.
In my age group anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So no, I remember
That was your
that.
first visit.
But then I remember more, like I said, with the little kids being able to come to Stillwater and do all this stuff outside and have these cool experiences, and it just felt homey. And then moving here, I definitely wasn't disappointed. Like I started going to some of the bars that were around, and like, oh, they have their own little crew of like towny people, all these characters that are at the bar on a Tuesday night. So
That make the town what it is.
super
Well,
awesome.
So I have a hard time understanding Stillwater pre-Brad Glynn, because there's all sorts of things that you impact and Liftbridge impacts here. But when your kids were young and you were here, what sort of things what festivals, what things did you take them to?
So Lumberjack Days was just kind of, I guess, in the crazy days, right? It was the Leonard Skinner days. Like that's when I first moved here.
Okay.
And I guess that's early 2000s.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot of that, and then just hanging out in neighborhoods. Honestly, like my kids were super active in sports and stuff, and I wanted to coach everything. So I coached, volleyball, t-ball, football, basketball, like everything.
Did you play these sports when you were young?
No.
You didn't?
Well, I did like football and baseball. I guess I did basketball somewhat, but the girls volleyball was a total. But that was a great story in and of itself, because like there was this kind of click system to who was picking the volleyball players, and my daughter's like 12 and never played before, and I'm like, she just wants to have fun and whatever. And there was another parent there that was kind of irritated with the process, and there was one team that didn't have a coach, right? Well, we have enough kids for 9 teams or whatever it was, and does anyone else want to coach? And all these other people had already like picked their teams, and I need to drive Anna because she lives nearby, and I'm friends with her mom, and I know she works on Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, I see what's going on here. It's kind of lame, but anyway. So her and I were like, we can coach. Like, I don't know, I've coached soccer before. Like, I've never played that.
Couldn't be too different, right?
I can read a book on it. I can figure it out. So like, her and I took this team, and we started out really rough and like lost the first few weeks, and then her niece actually had some college experience playing volleyball. She jumped on. We were like, we got this ragtag group of girls that no one wanted, but screw it, we're going to do it. And we ended up making it to the playoffs and winning the first game.
Oh,
We didn't win the
yes!
championship, but, we like got there. So it was like great. It was like this bad news Bears story.
Yes.
But, no.
Who was you know what? Here's props to all the parents that volunteer to coach a program they have nothing about. But the passion, you don't have to know the thing. If you have a passion to the kids, develop the kids, help them have a fun time, learn something new, that's all you really need.
Yeah, honestly. And success comes when you do all the right things, right?
Yes,
Like if you're in it for the right reasons, and that's, again, like back to everything, right? It's just getting into it for the right reasons. Coaching is supposed to be, you're
Supposed to be fun.
making the kids have a fun time,
Yes.
and learning team skills.
Yeah.
This isn't learning winning skills. This
Yeah.
isn't learning necessarily even losing skills. It's just learning team skills, right? So
Yeah. That's so
anyway,
cool.
but so I did a lot of that. So busy doing that, and then busy with career, and then really got in with a group of friends that did a lot of overnight poker leagues. So we played a lot of poker, and that's when I met some of my first business partners. So Dan, who was my current, he and I are the sole owners of Liftbridge, and some former partners were in the same poker league.
So it started at a poker night.
Yeah, because you're trying to, get out of the house.
Yes.
The kids are like,
Yes.
you're doing all this stuff all day, so blow off some steam and have some great poker nights where you're drinking beers, whiskey, smoking cigars all night long, kind of thing. So those experiences also tend to lead to long conversations about what you like, what you don't like, and I was again starting to homebrew again. I'm like, I don't know, here's some beer that I made.
So even before poker night started, you were still brewing on your own?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
The homebrew system was pretty dusty, but it still worked every now and again. And a few of the guys who we played poker with also homebrewed.
Did you know this before?
No.
So you came together, thought you were kind of cool people that got along,
Yeah.
and then you find out you have some common shared interests.
Sure, and then we were like, well, we should get the families together on a weekend and brew together. So we started doing that, just have cookouts and brew a batch of beer.
Okay.
So, and as time went on, we thought, Stillwater at that time, the most, I guess, now you have a lot of bars with a lot of tap lines, a lot of choices, right?
Yeah.
Really, there was the Mad Capper had 10 tap lines or something like that. It was like, whoa, they have a huge selection, the best selection in Stillwater, and they had a few Belgian beers that you couldn't get anywhere else. So, but through that, we were craft beer is starting to surge around America and Twin Cities right now. There's no reason why Stillwater shouldn't have some cool
something
beer bars, brewery, brew pub. Something. So we just kind
And
of
what
started.
year is this now?
That's 2006-ish.
Okay.
So then, Surly started in 2007.
Okay.
Tail end of 2006, 2007. So that's when really that second wave really started in craft brewing, where Minnesota just had. So Lithbridge was the 12th brewery in the state in 2008.
That's
and we were the
shocking.
only brewery that opened in 2008.
Wow.
So that 2005 to 7 period was okay, this is a national trend that's not going anywhere that Minnesota needs to catch up with, basically, and is going to, because it's going to happen. So,
and this was part of conversations at poker night.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to get on this train, or actually, you were more first.
Because we all love beer. We all loved stuff that was coming out of the West Coast and East Coast, and just knew that it was a matter of time, and Minnesota would blow up and be an awesome beer destination. But we didn't know to what extent either. So.
Sure.
After Surly started, we're like, oh boy, are we too late to the party? How many breweries can this state really support? What's going to happen? So we talked about maybe doing a bar and brew pub kind of theme. But then we were like, I think we can do more than that. I think we can, be a production brewery. None of us really wanted to be, again, back to the restaurant ownership thing. I'm like, I don't want to own a restaurant. And work nonstop all day and night. And
who is crazy enough to do that stuff? I don't know.
So let someone else do it, and then if we can just make really cool product that they can sell, that would be cool. So, we didn't really know in the early days what exactly things would look like in 5-10 years.
Sure.
But we knew that there, craft beer is here to stay, and we wanted to be part of it.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a really cool business too. We had been to some beer festivals out west where all these breweries would be kind of there'd be so much camaraderie among them, and you'd see this group of they were kind of the rejects of the brewing industry. You had all these the bigwigs in suits from Anheuser-Busch and Miller. Then you had this grungy group of artisan kind of mad brewers that were kind of their own thing, and we're like, we want to be.
You want to be them, the ragtag,
but still making money, and still able to
affect
things and put out awesome new flavors and tastes that people are really starting to jump on. So that's kind of the genesis of the brewery. Then was just talking about how we take steps to do that. I had never started my own business. Luckily, Dan had started a few businesses, so he's the kind of the spreadsheet, writing a business plan kind of person.
He's the numbers guy, which you need that numbers guy.
Yeah, for sure. And then I was more the, how things look and the flavor development side. Even today, when people ask, well, what does Dan do and what do you do? It's well, Dan's everything you don't see, and I'm everything you see.
You're the forward face.
But that's great, because he's taking care of all that. He's got a super sharp business acumen background. So that was good. So as we got together talking about what our business plan could look like and how this could really work, it just started making sense. And then we started as we were putting in a couple $100 for new homebrew equipment, it was like, okay, let's take out a loan for $10,000 and buy this, and then it was like $100,000, and then it was getting real, right?
Yeah.
So then
100,000 in, and all of a sudden it's like,
yeah. So
all
then
right, we're in.
It definitely got real pretty quick, and convincing family and friends and all that to like support us.
Let's pause on that because you have multiple partners, which any partnership, I've had multiple, tricksy at best. So you have to negotiate that, but then you're getting buy-in to start something brand new from not just your family, but all these families. What was it like, and was there resistance, and did you have to like fight for it?
Yeah, well, other, like you said, different partners, different stages in life,
Yeah.
different backgrounds, different current financial situations.
Sure.
So it was super tricky on, what people's level of input, both financially, emotionally,
Yeah.
intellectually, is going to be, right? So we were always kind of working owners, but I'm a way more of like an all-in person. I'm on it,
Yeah.
and I can't, like, I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about stuff, and I need to like do that. So for me, I always felt like I was 120% emotionally in, right? But I probably didn't have the financial background that some other people did that could contribute more that way. So it was tricky early on setting up like who's going to do what. A few other people had careers that they didn't want to leave. That was a good move that they didn't leave.
Yeah.
I had a career that I shouldn't leave, but I wanted to. So like over time that became clear that I need to do that and go full time here at the brewery if we're going to make it.
Yeah.
If we really want to do this, or if we just want to like go halfway in, guys, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
We need to start making some emotional leaps too.
Yeah, because there's usually a crisis at some point, whether like we need to fold or we're going to power through.
Yeah.
Super emotional. Do you remember that place for you guys, that it was like you're losing sleep and you either have to like gangbusters or...
Oh, there's several
several
very
of those
key moments in my head that I'll never forget. I mean, we had arguments with partners where like broken glass and like there's gonna be fist fights right now. Bought that person out, and then we had some other stuff too. And again, me coming on full time was a whole conversation. Like I'm trying to tell my business partners like we need to do this, and I don't need much money. I need a little bit, though.
Yeah.
And like, well, I don't know if the business can afford this. And it's like, well, then...
Every entrepreneur.
Right.
Like, I should probably... It's been 4 years, whatever it's been. I should probably pay myself.
Right.
And you need to, but it's a huge bounce for the business to afford that.
So those were probably the trickiest times in terms of, I don't know, emotion and all that. And plus, everyone had little kids because we were all... That's why we were playing poker together, because we had 4-year-olds at home.
So all of you had the same age kids, about?
Ish, yeah. And they were all kind of, teenagers or younger at the time.
Should have gotten an award for that. That's a lot. It's a lot.
But, so in the early days, there was those struggles, but also at the same time, it was so cool and new, and like I have pictures of my, I think at the time 8-year-old daughter like scrubbing the brew floor. Like it's one of my favorite pictures. It's hanging in my dad's house.
I still tell stories of when I swept my dad's warehouse. Like it's very formative. Yeah.
So that's like good. Like I picture those moments too, along with shouting and breaking glass. So those were again more maybe volatile days. Or
passionate.
Days, And now, like, that's still there, but it's just, we have a little bit more stable, financial environment and emotional environment, too.
So at what point did you feel like there was a tipping point for your business growth? Because you guys, it was funny when you said you were thinking about Surly, and maybe you were too late to the game, which you guys were so at the forefront compared to where we're at now. When did you hit a tipping point where you're like, we're kind of a big deal. This is working. This is going to be a very successful business.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if we're there yet that I can sit back at all. I don't want to. But I mean, where we actually felt like we were making traction, we added a few states. We added Wisconsin. We added like North Dakota. Then when we started doing beer events, You know, the Great Taste of the Midwest is in Madison every year. It's like the best beer fest in the country. We were on a waiting list to get in because they don't accept all breweries right away. And then finally we got there, and you know, it felt like, okay, we're one of 150 premier breweries in the whole Midwest. This is
So this
amazing.
feels like a big deal.
And then having other brewers be like, oh, you're from Liftbridge? Awesome, I tried this, I tried that. And it's like, okay. And remember back to that, that group that we wanted to be, we wanted to be that cool, brewery that's doing fun stuff, that's making people like turn their head and be like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then we were doing that all of a sudden. So that was really cool. And again, having people walk up that I didn't even know. And that's kind of the stages that you go through too. Like when we were in the backyard before we even started the brewery, we were doing just backyard parties with different batches of beer, the first farm girl recipes and our first like crosscut pale ale recipes. We were brewing at homebrew and then just having like cookouts and having people come out and party. And like we made glassware for it and everything.
I love this. I love it.
But that was in 2007, 2006, 2007. And then, my backyard, I'm sitting there and like I have 180 people in the backyard, and a few people are walking up that I don't know that are like, this beer is pretty good. Do you know the people that like brew it? I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool. Like, maybe we need to graduate from the backyard.
Yeah.
And then we did a lot of beer fests around here locally, and beer dinners, and and hand sold accounts. I mean, I was driving around in a catering van that we bought from Roma, delivering beer on our first routes, and then that was cool. Then going to a bar and actually ordering a beer, right?
Who was the first bar that carried your beer?
Well, Smalley's actually.
Smalley's.
Yeah, in Stillwater. I can't remember who. It was Stub and Herbs, I think, in all of the Twin Cities. I think they were the first. But Smalley's was the first here in Stillwater. And we still have pictures. Frank Brewer was the bartender, and this one dude who still lives in town was customer number one. And he'll still
I want to be customer number one. No, that ship sailed a long time ago.
He'll still show up at bars. Like I'll still see him around town and be like, I'm number one. And I'm like, yes, you are.
Wow.
So that's super cool.
Very cool.
But then doing that's that other stage where you're like, okay, now like locally it feels like we're making it.
Yeah.
And then again going to the Great Taste of the Midwest. Now we're amongst like all these premier breweries in the Midwest, and we feel like we're part of it, and they are recognizing us, and all these other people are walking up to the booth that live in, Illinois and South Dakota and northern Wisconsin that are recognizing and having that great experience with our beer. So that's that other.
And what year is that? Where you're getting to like that third step and feeling like?
We started in 2003, so now that's probably like 2008, 9-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put in 7 years.
Yeah.
People, I think, assume this all just happened, like Liftbridge, but it is hard work, nose to the grindstone, kind of grueling, and these small things are like celebrations of your success, but you never get to let up, right?
Well, right, and there is a way to grow fast too. We could have just raised a bunch of money, diluted ourselves, and people did that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that did that. I mean,
so
many people even, Surly, built this big, huge place, and before COVID, all of a sudden, so there's like questionable stuff. They kept similar ownership too. I didn't really take on a bunch of investment, but I saw other breweries taking on investors. We all did, and we saw what would happen. Sometimes it'd be great, and sometimes it would be, they'd just take them down.
Yeah.
And a lot of bigger breweries were buying smaller breweries at the time too, still are, and kind of incorporating their brands. Sometimes for the better, like Budweiser and Goose Island, but sometimes for the worse. St. Arnold's you don't see anymore. Like there's other examples of bigger investors coming in. We're going to build you up and take you national, and then 2 years later you got nothing. So we certainly didn't want to do that. So we've always grown organically and always put in our own money. And again, any of these acquisitions now, as I mentioned, Dan and I are just the two of us now. So.
You had to buy out
kind of scrap
partners,
together all of our
right?
cash and buy those guys out, and which is great. That's great for them. I mean, they're happy with it too, and none of us feel like we got screwed out of anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's all good.
But you're like, you take the big risk, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you take another risk, and now this last one, that's another big risk.
Right.
You're putting it all on the line.
So, and then just keep growing, smartly and not
Yeah.
take a bunch of investment on, which at some point we'll take some investment on. We're looking at it right now, but it'll be pretty strategic then.
Yeah.
And we won't, forego our vision. We
Yeah.
wouldn't, forego our mission to just try to go to a few new states. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need to do that now. We can get there.
Yeah. What is your vision or your mission? Like, do you have a tagline that you guys say to yourself is, if it doesn't align with this, no bueno?
Yeah, so we started a few years ago in EOS is this. This is going to get super boring if I get way into it, but
Well, just a peek.
it's this entrepreneurial operating system called Traction. So we started that a number of years ago, actually to ferret out some issues that were going on that we could have just probably addressed. But regardless, it's more of a how make the business work for you, not you work for the business sort of mentality. So we adopted that, and we kind of spread that organization wide. We have the same meetings at all times. We have different groups. We have a pretty good org chart. We have a good 10-year outlook of each year.
Sounds like some good project management.
Yeah, so
there
that
you
worked
go.
out. But
Yeah.
and then you plan out where we want to be, and everyone knows that. So
Yeah.
like our sellerman knows that in 5 more years we want to add 3 more states. We have it on the wall, like the years. So
Love that.
we do have that 10-year plan, and our mission statement is elevating life's moments with the perfect pairing. So we kind of boiled
love
that down
that.
too, but that's that thing
Yeah.
where you say, like, what's our mission? Like, when we're going to make those decisions of a product or whatever, does it align with that? Are we elevating life's moments with the perfect pairing? And we've kind of had to change that over the years, because we did just do beer, and then we started doing soda, and we
Yeah.
do hard seltzer. Now we do some like contract packaging for some people and some flavor development consulting, but it all kind of then aligns with just creating these great experiences and pairing something with that. And that's what I think we've done.
Is that kind of the heart and soul of who you are as an individual? Like, you're so drawn into community and to gatherings, and it seems like a little bit of your heartbeat.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of my favorite times and are like planning parties and having people, sharing cool experiences with people, sharing awesome food, sharing awesome beer, creating events. We created a ton of really cool events at the brewery that were new, and now other breweries are doing them. And being a part of Lumberjack Days, I was part of that when we took it over from, well, it was nothing, but
Yeah.
we called it Log Jam for a year, and
Yep.
then we got the Lumberjack Days
Name back.
and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's kind of that's when I'm like at my most stressed, but probably also most satisfied. Is like, before a party or something, and I have like all this food out. I have like beer exactly where it needs to be. I got Jello shots, and I got like or
All the ducks
whatever.
in a row.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, like ready to go,
Yeah.
ready for people. So
Then the joy follows.
yeah, and
Yeah.
everyone who like works for me and with me, and like even now, it's that's my crazy time. And they're like, Brad's gonna be nuts. Like before any like news segments we do or something, that's when I'm super psycho about everything and running around like a crazy person. But it's fine, because like in 5 minutes, once it's over, I'm like,
You're cool.
I'm cool as a cucumber. I'm fine. I'm like happy. But
Yeah.
that's definitely creating those really cool moments is that kind of in my heart and soul.
Yeah. Well, here's what I want to do. I want to take a short break, but then when we come back, I want to learn about the flavor profiles. I want to taste some beer. It might be early in the day, but I think it's okay. I want you to tell me about all the magic that you make with creation, since it sounds like you're kind of a recipe master. I actually ask Brad a lot for his feedback in my business, because I appreciate just how sharp you are when it comes to understanding that sort of thing. So why don't we take a break and then have some beer later?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Fun is the name of the game at the Lumberjack. Throw some axes, enjoy Union Alley, sit back, relax, take in the excellent food and drinks. The next time you are out and about in beautiful downtown Stillwater, visit Sarah and the great staff for a fun night out. Visit the Lumberjack off Commercial Street in downtown Stillwater today for a glass full of fun.
Cheers.
Welcome back. I am with Stacy today. She is with the Greater Stillwater Chamber of Commerce, and she's going to give us a community update because we have a lot going on.
We have a lot going on.
Yeah.
We have wintertime in Stillwater coming up.
That's kind of a big deal.
It's an awesome big deal, yes.
Let's start with November. What's going to happen in November?
Well, we are going to, I guess I was going to say kick off, but we're going to kind of end November with lighting up Chestnut Plaza and the bridge. The full bridge, both sides.
Okay, pause. Both sides of our beautiful lift bridge.
It's
You
true.
heard it here first,
It's
people.
true, yes.
Really big dandy. Okay, this is on Friday?
Yes.
What day?
So Black Friday, technically, or Plaid Friday as it sometimes is called. So that's going to be a really big deal, and that's really going to kick off our wintertime in Stillwater events
all right.
coming up.
And then is there anything for that Shop Small Day?
There is Saturday. Yeah, we're going to actually, that's kind of the kickoff weekend for Hometown for the holidays, and you're going to see a lot of themed weekends happening all through December. And so that's going to be our Small Business Saturday kickoff for Hometown for the holidays. And we're going to light it up, literally.
Stillwater's getting lit.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, so what should I look forward to in December?
Oh my gosh, so much fun stuff. We're going to have some fun themed weekends. We're going to bring down some reindeer. Santa Claus is going to be around.
Like real live reindeer?
Like real live reindeer we're talking
I'm
about.
so in for that.
We're going to have a Candyland weekend, so we're going to have some sweet things going on. We're going to have a gingerbread making contest, so all families and all ages are invited to participate in that.
Do people sign up for that?
Yep, there's
Okay.
going to be a registration form on the Chamber's website for that.
All ages. Anyone
all
can do it.
ages, families, businesses can enter. It's going to
All
be
right.
super fun.
It's an official throwdown. You should sign up.
Totally, yes. And we're going to also have, let's see, a pets weekend. So we're going to have a pet parade. We're going to have a petting zoo here in Lowell Park. And then, of course, the Twinkle Party around the lighting of the Christmas tree,
Okay.
which is always fun.
So we have fun things every weekend in December.
Yes.
And then can you give us a little tease? What's coming up in January?
I can, yes. So 2022 is going to feature the World Snow Sculpting Championship that the Chamber is bringing here to Stillwater, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a full week of amazingness, January 18th to the 23rd.
Okay, so next time we chat with you, I want more details.
Yes.
I want to hear more, but that's a great
That's a
update
good teaser.
for now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
Fun is the name of the game at the Lumberjack. Throw some axes, enjoy Union Alley, sit back, relax, take in the excellent food and drinks. The next time you are out and about in beautiful downtown Stillwater, visit Sarah and the great staff for a fun night out. Visit the Lumberjack off Commercial Street in downtown Stillwater today for a glass full of fun.
Cheers.
Welcome back. We are going to try some beer. So I was learning about your awesome flavor profiles, and now I want to hear a little bit more about how you make it, what's in it, and then let's taste.
Yeah, beer, as I was kind of explaining to you, is the marriage of art and science, right? There's a lot of scientific things going on with fermentation and how much carbonation even affects the way you taste beer and perceive it. So and then the art really comes with, blending different malts and different hops that have different flavors. A lot of it's like cooking with herbs, right? Like
Okay.
that's kind of what hops are, and really the malt gives you the color and a lot of the malt characteristics, whether they be sweet or bitter or chocolatey, or a lot of that comes from the malt. So
Okay.
when we started the brewery, our first beer that we came out with was our Farm Girl.
Yes.
And at the time it was a saison. We've kind of tweaked it a little bit, which
What
was a
what
big
does
step.
saison mean? What does that
So
mean?
under the Belgian ale category, so again using Belgian yeast, that's another component that really affects flavor of beer. Yeast
Okay.
can make things taste barnyardy or farmy, estery. That's
Okay.
kind of the Belgian end of things. Lager yeasts are very clean and crisp.
Okay.
So you have a lot of the light lagers that are very clean and crisp.
Okay.
And then everything in between. There's different yeasts that react better with higher gravity beers or stronger alcohol beers.
Okay.
And there's some that ferment better with lower alcohol beers. So under the yeast Belgian ale category, Saison was a little bit of wheat, some sugar. Belgian yeast creates some funky, I would call them like clove banana esters.
Okay.
So what we did was we tweaked that a little bit because we noticed a lot of people, it was polarizing. That Belgian ale category is a little polarizing. So we're still in the Belgian ale category in that we use Belgian yeast, but we don't get a lot of the clove banana character. We kind of tone that down a little bit. We still add wheat and oats in here along with barley, so it really gives a smooth, silky body to it. And then we played around with different hops too. A lot of Belgian beers don't really feature hops at all. Okay. But again, as I mentioned, hops are kind of the herb of beer. Yeah. Right? So right now we have a lot of cool new hops on the market. We're using Calypso hops in this beer primarily, and that's kind of a cool name, right? But hop companies are coming out with these different hops, which has a really like a melon peach flavor almost too. And you get that in the aroma and a little bit in the flavor, and that just kind of amps up everything else. We do also use some orange peel in this. But I will mention, we went from kind of a Saison to more of a Belgian golden ale. Still really in the same family, really darn close. Yeah. About the same. Yeah. And we actually, reformulated this and we repackaged it. So we gave the whole thing a little facelift with some brighter colors, and we won a Great American Beer Festival medal with this beer in 2021.
Well played. That's
awesome.
A really big deal.
We were one of 6 Minnesota breweries to win a medal.
That's a super big deal.
With our flagship beer.
Cool.
So
let's try to taste this.
So we'll taste some Farm Grill. Again, our malts we use are golden malts. So you have the light golden color. Got a nice fluffy white head to it.
There is a right way to pour beer, right?
There is. There's a wrong way too.
That's what I did earlier.
So there's some of those little Belgian spices that you get.
It
finishes pretty sweet.
It has a ton of flavor. I don't think people linger enough in their beer when they take a taste. Like with wine, you're supposed to be all fancy. Very similar. Keeps hitting me different in my mouth.
Right.
Love that one.
Using different malt and hops, we create a lot of different flavor characteristics. I'm drinking Fireside Flannel, which is definitely a darker beer. We use roasted malts. You get some of those chocolatey coffee flavors to it.
Yes.
That's
what I was drinking, right? The
berry blonde ale. So our berry blonde, we actually use blackberry and boysenberry in there.
Yeah, that's very good.
And then our hoppy beers. Our Hop Dish is one of our best sellers. Again, one of our flagships we do year round. Again, exploring all these new hops that are on the market and really elevating the beers. A lot of newer beers, again, we're in 2021. A lot of new beers are these what are called double dry hop beers,
which I'm totally lost on. But you guys always think outside of the box. You're creative. You're at the state fair with mini donut beer. We're creating this. Tell me about that innovation. There's a lot going on.
We started an innovation team actually at the brewery, and again, it's really staying in touch with what's out there in the market. Palates change over time. I mean, 20 years ago, Tabasco sauce was spicy, right?
Right.
And now there's, you go to a hot sauce aisle in the grocery store and there's a million different things. There's habanero and there's all these crazy peppers. Same thing happens in beer. Flavors develop over time and change and all that. So producers of, products like hops are constantly changing too to feature different characteristics. As I mentioned, we had some melon characteristics in Farm Girl. And some of our other beers, like Hop Dish, we have our hops that are more piney and citrusy. We created a new beer called Batch 4000 to celebrate our 4,000th batch, which is pretty crazy.
Clever. That's a lot of beer.
Wow. And we're dry hopping, so meaning we're putting hops directly into the fermenter on the cold side after the beer is kind of fermented. So
normally hops are wet.
Like in the boil kettle, and you boil them a little bit. Okay. And to me, it's, again, kind of going back to herbs and cooking. You put some basil in your sauce, right? Yeah. You make pizza, and then you sprinkle some fresh basil on that pizza, and then eat it. It's a different flavor, right? Yep. You get the aromas. So similarly, when we put hops directly into the fermenter after the beer's boiled and all that, you're retaining a lot of the aroma. You don't get a lot of deep bitterness or extreme flavor, but you get a lot of great aroma.
It's in the nose as it's coming up. Which I love that.
So this is kind of a hazier beer too in appearance. So there's a little bit of haze to it because we don't filter out. We don't want to filter out all the hop goodness, but definitely the aroma. This is one you definitely taste with your nose first.
Oh,
and there's
citrus.
A lot of tropical, citrus, pineapple, mango, even
I
some
smell
stone
the
fruit.
Might because you just said it, but it's right up there on the front.
So a lot of hops.
Wow.
And this is a bigger beer, so it's 8.5% alcohol too. But a lot of flavor to
That's
kind of
magical.
balance it.
Would you say mostly though craft beer is going to be higher in alcohol content?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Okay.
typically these kind of beers are. We still make a lot of our beers that are 5% or less. Because again, we make beer to, for people to have more than one too. I don't want people to just have one beer and put it down. I'd like,
You'd like 'em to
a
have a
couple
couple?
more tap pulls, and you'd like that too at the bar.
I
So
do like that. Two more questions. So, what's the beer that's like the heaviest and the hardest hitting that you guys create?
we make a couple beers specifically in the winter. One is coming up. It's an English style barley wine called Commander.
Okay.
So we have the Commander building in Stillwater.
Is that what you named it after?
Yeah, it's the tallest building in Stillwater. So we have the Commander barley wine. It's our strongest beer. It's actually 12.5% alcohol. We age it in bourbon barrels, so
Okay.
it's very bourbony, sweet. We also do a imperial stout in January called Silhouette.
Okay.
And it's a very deep, rich, molassesy, really awesome stout that's about 11.5% alcohol
Okay.
too. So big flavors,
Yeah.
a little bit different ends of the spectrum. When you look at different beers and how they're featured, the ingredients, the yeast and farm grill is specific. The malts in something like Fireside or Silhouette coming up really create those distinct characteristics. The hops in something like this, and then other adjuncts like berries and berry blonde or a mango blonde is super popular that we use mango puree and flavoring.
Yeah, and you can always taste that. And this and Commander. So that was a super unique experience for me. I kind of want more. It leaves me wanting. The Commander, I was visiting when we first moved here, and I'm a bit of a lightweight, and it was so tasty. I went home real happy just from a little taste of it. But I love that. But what I noticed more when I walked into Liftbridge was this true sense of community. Like it seemed like every corner, and I was there for a celebration, but it seemed like that is pure foundation for you.
Yeah, well, we definitely wanted to be a part of the community, stepping in and creating. A lot of these flavors are really reflective of the Midwest too. So we look at it both in terms of how are we making our beers taste, but also that experience we give people, what we do in our time, how we choose to sponsor people, how we choose to feature partners. So in the tap room has really become kind of that community hub.
Yeah.
We've hosted a lot of nonprofit events. Where we've raised a ton of money for a lot of local companies, and it's important for us. So it's important for us to sponsor, the ad and the hockey program every year,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing. Like we're going to do that because we want to support our community.
Yeah.
Personally, I get involved in way too much stuff probably around the community with Lumberjack Days and now with all the winter stuff coming up.
Yeah.
I've sit on a few different commissions for all that fun stuff. But you know what? It's about making it our own.
Yeah.
And you had Ted as a guest, and that's inspiring to have people really, who are younger and not in the mainstream stodgy. This is how things are, and that's the way they're going to be forever, right? In brewing, we're trailblazing somewhat, and we can all do that in the community too. We can make this community our own.
Yeah.
We can buy a bar and make it cool and throw axes. We can do some cool beers. We can volunteer to put on a sweet party on the river. We can all do that collectively. So we love Stillwater. We love being a part of it, and we want to bring that zest for local community support and put it everywhere around the Midwest.
That is like quintessential Brad Glynn. It's been super fun getting to know you better. I can see that Liftbridge is really a reflection of you. Clearly, your team too and your partner. I love how you give to the community. I love the funds you raise. I think Stillwater would be very different without Liftbridge in it, and I'm grateful, and I'm so happy to learn your story today.
Well, thank you. We're
Yeah.
happy to be a part of it.
Cheers.
Cheers.